Señoras y oyentes de Usalamedia, estamos aquí con Compass. Estamos en compañía de nuestro amigo, colega Fernando Treviño, quien ha estado aquí en este programa varias veces. Ustedes lo conocen muy bien porque es un experto en la política, por esa razón está aquí. Este programa lo dirige Dani Ramos en compañía de sus ejecutivos aquí en Usalamedia. Bueno, bienvenido, Fernando.
Gracias, tocayo, un placer como siempre.
Pues lleno el mundo de noticias, ¿no? De todas partes. No vemos buenas noticias, ¿no? Cuando pensamos que había buenas noticias con Biden, que había mejorado, que había hecho esto, que lo otro, y de repente, boom, what happened?
Bueno, la economía sigue mejorando. Creo que el nivel de desempleo sigue bajando en números récord. El poder de adquisición se está estabilizando. Entonces, no creo que la cosa esté o vaya tan mal. Pero la realidad es de que, bueno, hay un Congreso ahora, específicamente en la Cámara de Representantes, hay un Congreso dominado por los republicanos.
Pero republicanos de extrema derecha.
Sí y no. La mayoría es el republicano normal, el republicano que conocemos. Desafortunadamente se han dejado manejar y manipular por un grupo pequeño de radicales, al grado que vimos la elección para presidente del Congreso, para Speaker of the House, que tuvieron que votar, creo que fueron 15 veces, si no me equivoco, para poder elegir al Speaker McCarthy, porque tuvo que comprometerse y tuvo que dar muchísimas concesiones a este grupo pequeño, pero de mucha influencia.
But these are people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Gates, like, you know, all these extreme right wing. It's like the tail wagging the dog. That's what's happened. Even you say not all Republicans are that way. The majority are not that way. But who is controlling right now?
They have allowed them to control the group, and you're totally right. It's the tail, you know, wagging the dog, because even when it's a small group of 20-25 people, they have proved to be very politically savvy, to the point that if they don't support McCarthy, then the Democrats, actually with less members of Congress, they could have the majority. So McCarthy was forced. They forced McCarthy to give a lot of concessions and and do a really bad compromise for that, and we can go through several examples, but again, once again, the fact that they were able to push McCarthy all the way to 14-15 voting, right, in order to elect him Speaker of the House, he's controlled right now by this small group.
Well, this is the core of today's program, is to talk about the lasting influence of Donald Trump. And because he's like a huge shadow behind McCarthy, and behind Marjorie Taylor Greene, behind those Republicans who follow him blindly. And that has prolonged Trump's influence. He was practically dead, politically speaking, and then Kevin McCarthy goes down to Mar-a-Lago and embraces him, and all of a sudden there's Trump again.
Yeah, and even after the midterm election last year, he was again politically dead. And what he did immediately was to push, you know, Republicans to come out and support him. Not everyone has done it, but you're right. He has been a tremendous force pushing Republicans to do stuff that they don't want to do. And he has been savvy. We have to recognize that when he publicly, you know, is out there supporting McCarthy for Speaker, but at the same time, he's behind the scenes pushing all of these, you know, extremist radicals, pro-January 6, to challenge McCarthy. So so far, it's been a win-win for him.
It is incredible that through the years, because it's well known that he had legal problems, most of his public life, lawsuits from everybody. People he didn't pay, contractors he didn't pay, political enemies in the social circle where he also became persona non grata in many cases, especially after the events of 2020, when people in New York didn't want his name on their buildings and that kind of stuff. And yet, he survived. Look at the list. I mean, we don't have time right now to list the number of lawsuits from Georgia, from Arizona, from Congress people who want to sue him because of the attacks on January 6th, investigations from Manhattan, the DA in Manhattan, about now going back even to that actress, porno star, whatever that he paid. Now they want to investigate that one. So he's got a huge list of cases, and yet he's remained untouched by all of it. Why?
Again, he was very smart at waking up this anger and the inherent racism that the Republican base has. And he was able to tap and to normalize that kind of radical behavior. Because once the president does it, then a lot of people say, well, oh, so now I can do it publicly. And beyond the list of everything that happened that you just described, he's a former president that his national security advisor has been found guilty, right? His 2 or 3 closer advisors in the campaign have been charged and found guilty.
His lawyer.
Several things. His personal lawyer. Now, the CEO of his companies in New York was just sentenced to prison.
He's in Rikers?
Yes, in New York. And the Republican base still believe that he's the best chance of representing them. I was giving an interview the other day, and I told that I'm not in the business of advising Republicans, but the best advice right now for them is like, forget about Trump, support Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and you have the next president. Not that I like the guy, he's as bad as Trump on the policy issues, but he represents something else. But this Republican base, they still stuck in the past, still stuck in this hateful rhetoric, anti-democratic rhetoric that Trump pushes, and it's going to cause them a lot of problems.
Well, he's more dangerous in a way, DeSantis, because he's Trump without the baggage of all the legal woes that follow Trump.
Yeah. No. And he's younger. To be honest, I thought
he's younger.
He's not even 50. I think that he's 48, 49. So he could be easily the future of the Republican Party. So as a Democrat, I'm kind of happy that the base is still stuck with Trump, because that means that we have a chance. But the moment that they understand that what happened in the midterms in Florida, it wasn't an accident. It was specifically a political strategy designed and implemented by Governor DeSantis that could be easily done across the country. Republicans are going to be in a much better position to do something big next year.
But it's a shame because DeSantis, he follows suit. He's done what Trump did and even bigger.
Yeah.
Because what he did, we spoke about the racism, and we can build on that topic, because Trump enabled the racism that was dormant to come to the surface. He gave it legitimacy. He said there are good people on both sides. Remember that? He said to the Proud Boys, wait and what is it? Stand and wait.
Yes, stand down and be vigilant or something
right.
like that. Yeah.
So he gave the possibility of venting all their frustrations to these dormant racists who were waiting for an opportunity. So now here comes DeSantis. He's not Trump because he doesn't have all that legal lawsuits, legal baggage. And he is more dangerous in a way. He's smarter too. he's truly a bright fellow.
He is. He's a family man. Again, he has a beautiful family. He can speak about the Republican values that we used to hear before without sounding like a crazy person like Trump. Right. He is as dangerous as Trump because of his policies and his stand. And again, for me, he's the generational threat because he's the next Trump. He's the next guy. And what it's concerning, and we can kind of circle back to Pennsylvania a little bit, is that he's scheduled to be in Philadelphia in the next few weeks. You know that, right? He's coming to Philadelphia. He's gonna be recognized by one of the most important cultural and historical institutions in the city, and that tells you the reach that he can have. Even before announcing that.
Do we have the date for this?
Not yet. It was postponed because they wanted to do it right before the midterms.
And they had to be postponed.
But still, they are going to do it, right around the date where he's probably announced that he's running for president.
But is it because they support his views, or is it because they want to expose somebody who's potentially a national leader?
I would say both. I would say both. They recognize him as a national leader, but they could also recognize a few other Republicans with, a more moderate approach that could be national leaders as well. Right. But they are choosing him. They chose him. So.
Because it will be like Time Magazine with Man of the Year. I mean, they put Hitler there, and then the Pope also could be the Man of the Year. So that's the situation we find with this DeSantis. He has enough of a following that his name keeps surfacing as a presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. And they say Trump is truly afraid of this guy. He calls him, what is it?
I don't
the Santimonious.
Yeah, the Santimonious, yeah.
So, because he tries to put nicknames to all potential enemies.
Of course, it's the number one messaging tool from the populists, right? Is that you make sure that you give like a catchy, funny nickname to your political enemies, and that's the way to bring them down. And again, we have seen that with every single populist in the country right now. Not that I want to go back to what we have talked before about Mexico, but if you see the Mexican president, like he has given nicknames to every single of his political enemies. So it's one of the most basic populism messaging weapons that there are.
Right. Oh, that was the trick by Mussolini and every despot whoever ruled. But here's the problem with that. It goes beyond the nicknames. The nicknames can be funny, can be caricatures, whatever he called Bush. He was too calm, too restful, whatever.
Yeah,
I forgot now. Too relaxed, so that he was not worried about him. And then little, the other one, the other from Florida too, what's his name? The candidate that he's a senator from Florida.
Charlie Christ? Or?
No, the other one. He's a senator. Anyway, he put nicknames to everybody.
Yeah.
And then Ted Cruz is the most. I do not understand Ted Cruz because he insulted him, his wife, his father, everyone. He's still following him. I don't understand that. Anyway, the point I was going to make is beyond the nicknames, because what he did throughout his term in office, he undermined every institution, all the intelligence agencies, 17 of them. At Helsinki, he said he trusted Putin above all the intelligence he had. The FBI, every institution that we trust, he discredited. So, and that continues. I mean, how long will it take for the FBI to recover its reputation?
Yeah,
or the CIA?
Exactly. And coming back to Speaker McCarthy's point, or the topic, now he has appointed the super conservative and pro-Trump congressman from Ohio to, I'm forgetting the name of the committee, but actually the committee that will be able to investigate the Justice Department and the FBI. And he specifically, one of the compromise that he asked was, if you want me to vote for you, you need to put me in this committee because I want to investigate the involvement of the FBI and the Department of Justice
Jim Jordan.
In politics, when we know that they haven't done it under Trump and under Biden. So it's going to be it's very dangerous times right now.
It is, because when they speak about how democracy is in danger, and not only in this country, but you know there are repercussions, there are echoes of that outside this country. Brazil, Turkey, you name it, it's all over the world, because we're supposed to be the example of a democratic system that works. But here we are. We saw the insurrection at the Capitol, but we also have seen the way McCarthy right now, what he has done to people who were involved in the insurrection, giving them positions of power. Marjorie Taylor Greene on what 2 committees, I think.
It's two committees, but the main one is Homeland Security.
Security.
We have a congresswoman. I guess that we should call her that because she was elected. But we have a congresswoman that literally claimed that if she would have led the insurrection in January 6th, everything would have been armed, and that way they would have won. Right, we have a congresswoman that goes with this crazy person, Alex Jones, on her radio show, and actually claims that 9/11 is a hoax, that it never happened, or that it was, orchestrated by the dark government and that kind of stuff. And McCarthy appointed her to the Homeland Security Committee. It's just insane the things that he had to give away in order to be elected Speaker of the House. And if things keep going that way, again, he's going to be Speaker of the House for 2 years, because either that group is going to push him out and appoint someone else, or Democrats are going to take over the House again in 2 years.
Well, I hope that's what happens. I hope the Democrats come back. And I don't see how Republicans, the way they are behaving right now, they can sustain momentum and stay in power beyond 24, because there's at least 12 of those districts that were taken away from Democrats, that could go right back to them, because they're where people are sort of hesitant about either party. They are in the middle. They don't know which one to trust. And they could go all the way back to
They could go either way.
Democrats.
You're going to have actually new congressional maps in in Alabama, for example, where there's a pending lawsuit that claim, lack of representation from the Black community. And the Supreme Court accepted the lawsuit from Democrats. They just say, okay, we're going to wait until 2024 to fix the map. So at least just in Alabama, we're going to add another Democratic district there, plus the 10 to 12 that went Republican this time around, that can easily be flipped. And that includes this crazy guy from Queens, right? Santos, I think that is his last name.
George
Santos, yeah.
He deserves a special chapter.
It's a district that has voted Republican for president for the last 25 years. Before he was elected, a Democrat was the congressman there for 10 years in a row. But a combination of Republicans don't give in a blip, nominating this guy, and Democrats doing a really poor job on choosing, their candidate.
Well, the curious thing is that there was enough. There were enough indications that he was not a respectable candidate. Apparently, there was a newspaper that didn't get enough publicity, a reporter that had already written about this character. And the latest one, I heard this morning, was just a headline. I'm not sure what it means. A vet who is claiming that this guy bamboozled him and took money from him or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
And there's a fake check from Brazil.
Yeah, they're not bad they're not unimportant things, right? The latest is that he organized a GoFundMe campaign to, to pay for the expenses of a little dog that was, dying, and he kept the money and the dog died. Stuff like that. I don't want to say that they are not important, but there are way bigger things, right? Like identity theft. He has used 2 or 3 different names. He lied about everything on his resume. He was never vetted to be a candidate. But again, you know me. We have to hold Democrats accountable as well. It's like this is not only a really bad signal from Republicans choosing him to run for Congress, is that how in the hell Democrats didn't find out about all of this before the election, and how
somebody didn't do their
yes,
what is it, duty, their obligations.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to take a short break here in Usalamedia. Les habla Fernando Mendez en compañía de Fernando Treviño. Estamos hablando sobre el legado de Donald Trump y lo que está pasando ahora con la gente que controla el Congreso. No se vayan, regresamos en un momento. Pagano's Market and Bar has been serving gourmet Italian foods in Center City for 3 generations. Call Matthew Pagano for all your catering needs, and during these difficult times, please mention Fernando Mendez and receive a nice discount along with free delivery. Pagano's also makes the finest gift boxes in the city for all your holiday needs. Visit paganosmarketandbar.com. Señores oyentes de Usalamedia, estamos aquí de nuevo con Compass y nuestro amigo Fernando Treviño. Les habla Fernando Méndez. Phil Fisher controla el tablero en este momento. Okay, Fernando, we were talking about the consequence of all these Republicans now filling positions of responsibility. And anytime I look at that list of people who participated in the invasion of the Capitol, who have given interviews on radio and television, written articles, spoken on Fox TV against our democracy, complaining forever that there was, that Trump won and it was taken away from him, even though we have proved over and over that it was not true. But now look at some of the main characters. That's what I want to do right now. Look at the main culprits in a way, the high-profile figures, and let's see what they did and where they are now and what's happening. Because my feeling is there'll be a reckoning in the future. A lot of people who served Trump, who had no spine and surrendered themselves, they sold their soul to Trump. All these people will pay a high price. Their careers might end. In fact, some of them already ended. Some of them might be in jail, as we have seen from his finance person, and Michael Cohen, his lawyer. So the destruction of a whole generation of politicians, influencers, destroyed by one individual selling them snake oil.
Yeah, and I was looking through my notes just because I want to go through the list, kind of coming back to the topic, right, in terms of Congress. Right now, just to give a couple of examples, right, we have about these radicals, election deniers, Trumpist Congress people that kidnapped to some degree the House of Representatives. Representative Donalds and Paul Gosar. Scott Perry from Pennsylvania, right? That we need to talk about Scott Perry, because not only because we're here in Pennsylvania, but because he has been identified as by the January 6th committee as one of the most active Congress people that supported
and
the
insurrection. He was there.
Yeah, he was there, right? All of these, Lauren Boebert from Colorado, again, we mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene. So all of these names are very, very important because these guys are the ones who kept McCarthy of becoming Speaker of the House for several days until they were given what they wanted. And specifically, obviously, Matt Gaetz from Florida, but specifically, I'm going through the list because I want to go on the case of Scott Perry. Scott Perry was appointed to the Oversight Committee in the House, that it's the committee in charge of special investigations.
Yes.
And he literally tweeted this morning, "Oh, I'm ready. I'm about to start asking questions." And it's been public already that his main goal is going to open an investigation on Hunter Biden. Yes. And going after the Bidens on a personal way. And again, if there are issues that need to be investigated, by all means, like investigate them. But we know they're not going to be that objective on doing this. And as long as the Justice Department and the FBI and the January 6th committee are investigating him and are investigating these Republicans for supporting the insurrection, they are going to invent every single crazy thing to keep going after President Biden and his family, and they are going to use now they have the power to use the Oversight Committee of the U.S. Congress. So.
Yes. So as we said before, the tail wagging the dog. I mean, it's a small group of people, because the trouble is that then all Republicans get labeled with the same dirt, because we don't hear from them. What did Mitch McConnell say about all this? What did Mitt Romney? What did any of the more respectable Republicans? When did they complain about all the things going on in Congress right now that are noxious to the political system?
Well, look, we can spend hours debating about, the lack of courage, from the people that you mentioned, right? With a couple of exceptions, including Mitt Romney. That I'm not a fan, but at least he was always very consistent on, denouncing the insurrection, on voting for the Trump impeachment because he believed that he was responsible. But Mitch McConnell, right? If you remember his speeches after January 6th, he was, oh my God, this is blah, blah, blah. And a few weeks later, he forgets about it. He's again supporting Trump to some degree and allowing this small group of Republicans to kidnap.
And McCarthy, the same thing. McCarthy,
of course,
we already said he went back to Florida and rescued Trump. It's like, you have my blessing.
And now he's the Speaker of the House.
And now he's by a very narrow margin.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why he's worried about this character, George Santos, going away, because that will be a Democratic seat. If they take a special election, if they hold it, that's going to be a Democratic seat. So his numbers will be even smaller.
And he was appointed to 2 committees.
I know.
It's just unbelievable.
I don't think he's going to serve in any of them. I think he might be removed before then. Who's on the ethics committee? Because that's another thing. They defanged the ethics committee, right? I don't know if we even have it. Is it disbanded?
I don't know if it was, if it's done, but at least McCarthy took away a lot of the investigation power. He took a lot of the possibility to really do their job. So I'm not sure, to be honest, if it doesn't exist anymore or if it just was a way to take away their power just for them not to do anything.
So defund them or whatever. I don't know how they deal with that.
Yeah.
The mechanics inside Congress, I'm not familiar with that. But the fact is that there's no watchdog inside the Republican Party.
Because they don't have ethics. So why have an ethics committee if they have been unethical the whole time? So
it's like having a money manager without having any money.
Exactly.
Okay, we have no capital to speak of. Characters. Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, the hero of 9/11, all that stuff. Where is he now?
He's fighting not only for his political life, that's done. he's fighting for for his freedom. He's going to be indicted, not only because of his actions after the insurrection, but he's going to be indicted for all of his claims about the election. Right? He keeps losing all of these different legal battles, including in Pennsylvania. He lost every single lawsuit that he filed in Pennsylvania, trying to deny the election result. And I think that I was watching the news the other day, and he's either selling some kind of sandals or something like that, just try to raise money. Like literally, on his social network, he's promoting either flip-flops or loafers, something like that, just trying to raise money because he's in serious legal issues, and of course, Trump didn't pay him at all for all of the legal work that he did.
Yeah, so, and I guess the pillow man is not going to help him either, right?
Yeah.
What's happened to the pillow man?
Again, another business leader that not only supported President Trump, like it's his right, but that he went bananas on trying to claim that about fraud. So his company is really paying the price, and you can see a lot of Republican leaders and business leaders that they were supporting Trump, but when all of this happened, like they took a step back, so like no. There's a line that we're not willing to cross, versus, the pillow guy or versus Elon Musk from Tesla that just last week, because of his, capricho of buying Twitter just to allow the president to come back and to give back all of the accounts to these crazy people, Tesla, his other company, lost billions of dollars. I think that last week he was named the single individual that has lost the most amount of money.
A Guinness record.
Yeah, I think that he lost like $1.7 billion in a matter of months.
Yes.
And it's all about, again, you can be a business leader, you can be a Republican, you can support Trump, but when you go crazy for him, like he did, when you go crazy for the issues that Trump stands, you're gonna get hit. And what better example than Giuliani on the legal side, or that the pillow guy.
The pillow guy. There is a memorable video or picture of him with papers going into the White House, and that there was an outline of a plan that they were going to follow, I guess, into the new Trump administration. I think that was what was supposed to be. Anyway, so these people, their careers, their business have been affected. And where is Sidney Powell? Remember her? She was with Giuliani. They went all around the country with lawsuits.
The other lawyer, yeah.
With the lawsuits. Yeah. They lost 60 of them. They won one in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Where was the suit?
So in Pennsylvania, I think that it was to allow exactly
proximity.
The election monitors to be closer to the tables. That was the only. So yeah, the judge here said, like, you want to be 2 feet closer to the table? Sure. Take 2 steps and go for it. To be honest, I haven't heard a lot about her, but that tells you where she was doing her job as a lawyer. Not that I agree, but you could tell that she never crossed the line that Giuliani crossed, right? Yeah, she was an election denier. She was representing the legal interests of Donald Trump as a lawyer, but she didn't go crazy with the stuff that Giuliani did afterwards. And I think that's the difference, right?
Yeah, and the leaders of the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, all
everyone, not everyone, but a lot of them have been sentenced already, have been found guilty of insurrection. They're facing, federal charges, some of them local charges. The number of people that has been arrested, prosecuted, and sentenced because of January 6th keeps growing. And that tells you the implications, right? And coming back to in full circle to the topic of the show, some of them specifically are making statements that they did what they did because Trump asked them to do it. Right? And so when you have the former president orchestrating a coup, a de facto political coup to stay in power, mobilizing people to take over and do an insurrection, and then a couple of years later trying to run again and imposing his will in Congress, by allowing McCarthy to do whatever he wanted to do, with the exception of these 20 people that we're discussing. It's baffling. It's just unbelievable how Republicans keep falling for that. And yes, it's not every Republican. The base is his base, President Trump's base, is growing smaller, but at the same time, it's big enough and influential enough that it keep having repercussions. They keep having repercussions in the political life.
But he keeps selling them the same snake oil, and not only that. How about those the stuff he was selling where he was like Superman, Batman?
Yeah. Hey, there's enough dumb people in America to buy those stuff, and it's for him to raise money to pay for his legal fees, because we know that he's not going to pay, to raise money for the campaign. It's unbelievable how people still.
This is like the pet rock.
Yeah,
people buy that too, and the Shia pet. Remember?
Yeah, of course, of course.
So
it's a cult. It's a cult. I described that a couple of weeks ago in an interview. It's the cult of Donald Trump, and these people really got brainwashed to believe every single thing that he says. Because again, we're not talking about policy issues. We're not talking about philosophy. We're talking about crazy stance, like to the point where he convinced them to orchestrate an insurrection, right? To the point where he's convincing not millions, but maybe hundreds of thousands of people to buy superhero cards with him dressed as Superman. It's a cult.
In one day, he sold like $4 million worth of those cards. I don't understand. Anyway. But going back to this, the topic of his legacy and the people who have been affected by that, and how our institutions have been affected. And so the opposite side of that is, what is the AG, Merrick Garland, what do you think he's going to do with all that information from the January 6th committee that really outlines the insurrection and how it was Donald Trump's plan, with the help of all these people like McCarthy and Meadows, his chief of staff? He's
in a very difficult spot. He's in a very difficult spot because, as far as I know from the information that is public and is out there, I'm not going to pretend that I know more than that. He has enough evidence of going after several people, Congress people, Scott Perry from Pennsylvania and Donald Trump. But at the same time, and he's not supposed to take any decisions based on the political implications. But let's be honest, we live in reality. Right. The political implications of charging President Trump with something right now could be catastrophic, not only for the Democrats, but for the U.S. government in general, right? So I don't know what he's going to do. I know that he has enough to go after Trump. But at the end, the political reality, it's that, we are months away from starting the next presidential campaign. So it's going to be really interesting. But for sure, I don't see anyone with the toughest job right now in America.
How about who's the guy that Garland appointed to follow just Trump?
There's two special counsels
special
right
counsel.
now. I don't remember their names, and I apologize for that.
Smith is one of them.
Yeah, Smith is the one who was appointed to investigate and to oversee the confidential documents issued with President Trump.
Right.
And the new one who was just appointed a couple of days ago, it's to investigate the same issue but with President Biden. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, I know that I'm going to sound like a Democrat, but there's a huge difference there. And right now, everyone thinks like, oh my God, confidential documents, it's the same, right? The main difference is that in order to be a crime, to have or to remove confidential documents from the White House or from a specific, it has to be intentional, it has to be deliberate, and then you need to show enough effort to keep them. Like, you don't want to give them away, right? That's what happened with President Trump. He packed the stuff, he took, I think that it was around 15,000 pages of documents to his house. And from those, I think that it was like 110, 120 were found
like top
secret or confidential. But then he actually argued his right to do it. He filed lawsuits to keep those documents. So he did it intentional. He did it purposefully. And then he was trying to keep those documents away from where they supposed to be. The big difference with Biden is that as of now, I think that they have found only around 100 pages, and only 10 or 12 are confidential. And as soon as those documents were found, immediately they were sent back. They didn't put a fight of keeping the documents. So I'm not saying that it wasn't a mistake. I'm not saying that it was hypocrita, like we're saying in Latin America, from the administration and from President Biden, criticizing Donald Trump for that, when intentionally he did the same, unintentionally he did the same thing. But the context and the gravity of the issue is way different. So I think that having the Attorney General appointing two different special prosecutors was the right thing to do. And look, one is Democrat, the other is Republican. He chose a Democrat to go to investigate Trump. He chose a Republican to investigate Biden. He's been very transparent and very objective about doing that. So I think that they're going to do whatever they need to do to get to where they need to.
Yeah, I saw a profile of is it Jack Smith on MSNBC about where he has participated in very historic prosecutions.
He was a prosecutor for war crimes.
For war crimes, yes. And so he has a good pedigree. He's like, he's got a, and it's a Republican. So that.
Oh, the two of them are Republican. You're right.
There is no way to accuse Biden or Garland of choosing somebody who is already biased, who's made up his mind about.
And the attorney, the special counsel appointed to investigate Biden, he's a former attorney, U.S. district attorney appointed by Trump. Not only a Republican, but someone that served under President Trump.
Right. So at least that sort of inoculates Biden against accusations of setting up the stage so that automatically these people will conclude that there's guilt.
Exactly.
So anyway, well, as we go about this, how do you think this next election in 24? On the Democratic side, so now moving away from Trump, just on the Democratic side, where are the candidates? Where are they coming from? Because the only one I have seen in any way with a profile is Newsom from California. So I don't know where else are the Democrats going to find candidates, assuming that Biden doesn't run. He says he's going to run, but we don't know.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, right? And this goes for both parties. As sitting president, it's almost impossible that someone's going to challenge a sitting president. So if President Biden decides to run for re-election, and I know that you want to take the conversation away from Trump, but the reality is that it has to do a lot with Trump announcing that he's running, right? I don't think that any Democrat will challenge President Biden in the primary. I think that if he decides to run, he's the candidate. The whole party is going to rally behind him. A couple of people are not going to be that happy, but it is what it is. And then they're going to wait in 4 years to make a move. If the president decides not to run, then there's several scenarios on how things could shape up. Obviously, Vice President Harris would be a top contender. Gavin Newsom could be a top contender, although the situation in California right now is not the best in the country. So I think that he has a lot of baggage as well. But then you have the same names, unfortunately.
Yes.
The same names as always, right? Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. I wouldn't say that about Pete Buttigieg because he's kind of the next generation, the new. So you would have the same names that ran last time.
Has Buttigieg been neutralized by being appointed to that cabinet position?
Neutralized to challenge Biden, yes,
Biden.
of course. Yeah, he wouldn't.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but if Biden decides not to run, he did a great job on taking a very visible position. Now, there has been some issues in transportation, obviously, that we can talk later. That could actually come back and harm him.
Right.
But at the same time, his visibility, the profile of the Secretary of Transportation, all of the money that is being invested right now on infrastructure, he's the guy. His name is all over the place. So it was a smart move by him to accept that job.
I have a candidate for 2028.
Me too.
Shapiro?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, he's.
It's seems like the natural.
From day one, Governor Shapiro has not the same qualities like President Obama, but Obama-like qualities. I have seen him several times speak in person. I have one-on-ones with him, and he's an inspiring guy. Now, some people like him, some people don't, like everyone, like everything else. But he could be a very important contender, right? He unified Pennsylvania. He neutralized Trump's threats in Pennsylvania. So if things keep going that way, 2028 could be maybe Harris Shapiro.
Right.
But
I don't know. What's wow. Was Hillary Clinton the last chance for women to become president?
No, I don't think so. I think that still Vice President Harris has a chance to do it because of how things are shaping up. I think that's going to be tough for her. But no, there are a couple of very interesting candidates. Senator Klobuchar has a great profile, moderate, similar to Shapiro's profile. And there are a couple of other senators that could be interesting. Now, Governor Whitmer in Michigan, she has an amazing profile. Like if we're talking about Shapiro,
I think she would be one.
Governor Whitmer in Michigan.
I think more than the other two that you just mentioned.
Exactly, because it's a younger generation.
Klobuchar, I think her time has passed.
In general, I would agree, but I'm not. But it's important to mention her as at least as a candidate, but someone that really can do something. Again, if we're gonna talk about Shapiro from Pennsylvania, we should definitely be talking about Governor Whitmer from Michigan from 2028.
Right. Sort of a curious note here. Gerald Ford, you may have seen this brief segment. It's like a video where he was asked about whether or not there will be a woman president. And I don't know if you saw that, but he said, in his way of speaking, he said, I see only one way in the future in which a woman can become president. So there will be a ticket with a man at the top and a woman vice president. The president dies in office and the woman becomes president. That is the only way I see a woman becoming president. That's what he said.
So I don't agree. I think that a woman can be elected to office or can be elected president. However, the possibilities is there, right? And mainly if President Biden runs for re-election and wins. But let's be honest, the other possibility is that, and this is only me speculating, right? Nobody has said anything about this, is that he decides not to run, but instead of staying as president and not running for re-election, he steps down. And then Kamala Harris takes over as president, and then she runs for re-election. or for election as president of the United States. So I understand why why President Ford would say that.
That's a long time ago.
Of course, I would hate to even think about it, but President Biden doesn't need to die or just to die for her to take over, right?
That's a point of view from half a century ago.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
But look, it's a good answer in terms of the first woman as president. That's a realistic scenario, right? I really hope it doesn't happen. I really hope that she wins it the right way, and that President Biden keeps going. But yeah, 28 is going to be very interesting, specifically identifying that younger generation that, just like we talk about Ron DeSantis from Florida, Governor Whitmer from Michigan, and Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania are the same generation, the next step for each party. So it's going to be a good fight.
Well, young people showed up in the last election, the midterm election, which helped the Democrats a lot. Okay, we don't know who is going to do what. But what do you think will be the main issues? Because usually we have either immigration or, women's rights and all that. So what do you think will be the main issues in this coming election?
As always, it depends on who runs. If President Trump runs and he's the Republican nominee, we're going to be stuck again about insurrection, anti-democracy issues, corruption, all of that stuff. The main issue that will move people to vote in a regular election, again, it's going to be the economy, right? It's going to be inflation. Right. If President Biden gets the inflation under control, the economy in general, it's getting better. Again, the lowest number of unemployment in a long time. Businesses are coming back. Finally, we're kind of getting ahead of the pandemic, but the inflation is still there. So if he gets the inflation under control, it could be a great accomplishment for him to run as an issue. But at the same time, and even when it's more of a social issue, but we have seen that it affects elections, if Republicans keep going after the basic rights, right? Abortion, gay marriage, education, stuff like that, that could, keep pushing Democrats to come out and vote. And that's why younger people voted for by a lot this time, because it was beyond the policy issue itself of abortion, but it was the fact that Republicans were actively working on restricting several rights for not only for women but for people in general, right?
Yeah. Well, there was gerrymandering and all the way the districts have been shaped and all that.
That's going to be, again, with the exception of North Carolina, with the exception of Ohio and Alabama, that topic is done until 10 years, right? That topic is every 10 years. Yeah. Ohio is going to have Ohio and North Carolina are going to have a redraw. They literally going to redraw everything because the maps were so badly gerrymandered that, like the case in North Carolina, that even the Republican Supreme Court in North Carolina put a stop to Republicans. Like, no, this is too much. And the case in Alabama about the congressional map. But I think that it's going to be more. It's going to be based on how crazy Republicans keep going. That's the reality.
Yeah, but the thing is, right now they're crazy. Right now.
Oh yeah.
It's a party with no platform. As you know, in the last election, Trump ran without a platform.
Yeah.
And as you know, when they asked Mitch McConnell before the midterm election, what do you plan to do when you gain power? He says, I'll tell you after we win the election. It was a very cynical thing to say. I mean,
and that's their nature. Again, this is nothing new, right? If you go back to a few years ago in 2012, before that in 2009, when President Obama won, they asked, a reporter asked Mitch McConnell, so what's going to be the Republican agenda for the next 3 years? He said to make sure that President Obama doesn't get reelected. Right. They don't give a bleep about anything else but political power. I'm not saying that Democrats are perfect, but they have shown at least more interest of helping people than just restricting rights. So again, right now, after everything that happened last election around abortion, even then, Mitch McConnell introduced a national ban on abortion in the Senate.
I know.
So they are just not understanding the implications right now.
So, in spite of the opposition, Biden had a great legislative achievement in this first 2 years of his administration. A lot of stuff was done that is almost like the Great Society kind of thing that LBJ did.
He's been one of the most successful presidents in the last century, and again, a lot of people don't see it right now because they're still hurt with the economy or with inflation. But if we remember where we were 2 years ago, if Biden doesn't pass the Recovery Act, if Biden doesn't pass all of this other legislation that historically is investing money on infrastructure, on the environment, all of that, again, the number of the poverty levels would have increased by, I don't know, it would be amazing how much people would be affected just by the fact that Biden was able to bring Republicans along and pass the Recovery Act. Right?
Yes, and right now we need Congress to approve the debt ceiling to raise it, no, because otherwise we're in trouble. That's a big deal, and people are not even. A lot of people are not listening to that. It's mostly pundits and people like us discussing it, but it's a big deal.
It's a big deal because, again, Republicans, just like they did with President Trump, they are using this as a political tool when we shouldn't be playing games with that. Again, if the debt ceiling is not raised, interests are going to go up, loans are going to be defaulted, and it's going to start at the financial level that usually people don't understand or people don't believe is going to have implications on them. They're like, oh, it's just business leaders, whatever. But then that trickled down. And again, that happened with the automobile industry crisis, that happened with the housing crisis, that everyone thought, well, it's the banks getting in problems. But then it trickles down on how many millions of people lost houses, investments. So that could happen, right? If the debt ceiling is not approved, interests hike, loans that defaulted, a lot of people are going to have more debt, won't be able to pay, people going to bankruptcy, losing houses. It could be very damaging for the economy.
Do you think the Republicans will do enough damage to damage Biden? Will they do this?
Just because a lot of the financial sector is handled and based by Republicans, I don't think so. I think that they're going to use it just as a threat. They're just going to use it to shut down the government for a few weeks, like they did with Obama as well. But at the end, I think that the financial sector is just going to put enough pressure on them not to go that crazy. But it wouldn't surprise me, though. But
it would surprise everybody. I think it will create an instant crisis.
Yeah.
Well, Tocayo, we have reached the end of this program. I'm very happy you came on today.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure.
Great conversation. Wonderful. Señores oyentes de Usalamedia, hemos llegado al final de este programa. Con mi amigo Fernando Treviño, habló Fernando Mendez, Dani Ramos, Bill Fisher fueron los conductores de este programa. Muchas gracias. Hasta la próxima.